Hi, my name's Tim. I'm living with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, a disease that's impossible to pronounce.
Decoration Ghost started when Joe, or the beginnings of it, started when Joe Garrigan asked me if I wanted to just try starting something up. I hadn't played in a band in a little while, and he was really itching to start something again.
So at the beginning, it was Devender and I kind of jamming, and there wasn't really like a goal. We're just playing music to play music.
There was a kind of a rotation of a few people coming in and playing with us, and nothing ever really solidified. It really only started to form stronger when Tim started playing bass.
I've known Tim for years, and I've always wanted to play music with him. And he had a really, going back to Devender and I, really good magical way of putting our ideas together that I lack the ability to say, this part goes with this part, and this is where it comes in, and you gotta do it twice here. You know, I don't, you know, why don't we play everything 4 times? That's the way I think about it sometimes.
What I bring to bands is typically structure, transition, layering, that kind of stuff. So I'm not really good at coming up with riffs and that kind of stuff, and once I've got something out there, I can really work with it.
And then the 3 of us were talking, well, you know, let's get another guitar player, who can we ask? And Scott Hicks was really the first person that we kind of came to and thought of. We knew he wasn't playing, and he was interested in starting something again.
Tim came in and started kind of whipping them into shape, and I don't really know why my name came up. I mean, I didn't really know Tim and Devender that well before that, but they, for some reason, asked me, and for some reason it worked really well, like really quickly.
I think Joe and I both have the tendency to be more passive, definitely musically. And so Tim and Scott are much more headstrong as far as like what they want to do with certain things. And so that dynamic really added a lot and gave some direction to the songs. And so we started writing songs really quickly.
You know, it's been incredible. I mean, it was the most incredible experience I've ever had playing in any kind of band, songwriting-wise, and just coming together, because all 4 of us had uniquely different experiences playing with different bands and different types of songwriters and different personalities. So I think that was a very strong point in our success as 4 people coming together to play music.
Once the 4 of us got in the same room and started playing, it really did click. In a way that it hadn't. And it's just one of those things that just happens. It's, you know, the chemistry or just the personalities. When Tim started playing with us, he had the accident, and he was going through rehabilitation. And I mean, obviously the thought was in the back of my mind, I mean, knowing about his family history, and but we didn't know kind of what was wrong. It only kind of, I mean, it was relatively early on.
I was telling Devender the other day, like, I think it's probably pretty safe to say that we quite possibly are the only like active, or the only punk rock band with a guy with ALS still trying to have him be in the band. This is probably all very new territory.
I'm not entirely sure how my disease affects them on a day-to-day basis. For the most part, they don't really let on that it does, but you know, it makes for some complications as far as you know, we have to remember now to ask, you know, is there a stage? Is there a way for me to get up on the stage? Is the club accessible? Can I get to the bathroom? All these questions that are very un-punk rock to ask.
There's been a lot of times when I don't know how to feel, and I don't know what the right next move is, or everybody's expectations of everybody else in the situation are totally just up in the air and fuzzy. I mean, like, it's just such a weird circumstance. I guess it would be different if we were, you know, Def Leppard, or we were like this was our career, but this is just our hobby. This is our art. This is our fun.
For me, it's been hardest because I've been able to, in a certain sense, kind of kick some of the emotional stuff down the line and not fully engage kind of what I'm feeling about it. But when he can't do the things he loves, when he can't, you know, he has all this creative energy and he can't, you know, it's become harder for him to be able to do any of that. That it's so much more present, and I can't kind of push it off anymore. I kind of have to deal with kind of where he is.
My main focus every time I play with Tim, or with the band right now, is to play as best as I can, because every moment counts. Because I want every moment of playing with him to be the best moment he's ever had.
First, really, the big first thing was when he couldn't play with his fingers anymore, and he had to go to a pick, which doesn't sound like a big deal, but that really was a big part of how he played and a big part of his sound. And it was kind of suddenly he just said, I can't do that anymore. I can't move my fingers that fast anymore. And that was when it was really like, wow, this is happening, you know.
Really, after the pick was out, there was not really any more option for me to play the bass, so I rigged up a MIDI keyboard through my computer and run it through my bass amp and basically play the bass notes on my left hand. It's, you know, it's different. It's not the same, but I still get the same rush from playing up there. And in fact, it almost frees me up to rock out a little bit more, whereas, you know, toward the end of it, I was trying to sit incredibly still so I wouldn't drop the pick, and it was really constrained, and now I almost get that adrenaline rush again.
I know it's been a hard process for him kind of letting that go.
This has probably been the toughest thing I've ever watched someone go through. And emotionally, everyone gets emotional when you think about it, and you know, it's hard not to.
I always really took a lot of pride in the fact that this band wasn't about him being sick, and I think is one of the few parts of his life now that don't revolve around that. You know, practice is the one room that he can walk into and have people tell him he's, you know, you're being an asshole, or like, you know what I mean? It's like it's a part of his life where you get sick and people are taking care of you, and people love you and they're hurting for you. And I think you probably lose a lot of realness with people. I think people aren't as quick to tell you you're being an asshole when you are, or to correct you or have an argument with you about something. But in the band, it never even occurred to me to kid glove him in the band. It never occurred to me to think like, well, we should just acquiesce to Tim because he's not doing well, you know. And I've taken pride. I'm glad that we've been that for him.
I think for a bunch of aging musicians and old punk rockers, you know, Decoration Ghosts isn't as subpar as it could be, but let's not